Episode 7 of Agatha All Along, in my opinion, is the greatest episode so far. I can't wait to dive into all of the character reveals, all of the things that happen in this episode, and why I think it is so great. Subscribe to the channel. We're on the road to 5,000 subscribers. Also, leave a like on this video. It would help me out so much. Let's try to get this video to 50 likes. With that out of the way, let's go ahead and dive right into this crazy, incredible episode.
I'm Spider-Man.
This episode really focuses on Lilia, her trial, her backstory, all of the weird things going on with her throughout this series. All of those questions are answered in this week's episode. We start this episode off by seeing Lilia falling through an endless black pit, very similar to Get Out. After that, we meet up with Billy and Agatha, who are still on the Witch's Road, and they're talking about Billy's heritage. Billy actually rejects the Scarlett Witch, Wanda Maximoff, from being his actual mother, and thinks of Billy Kaplan's parents as his real parents. Billy also asks here, is Wanda Maximoff still alive? And she says yes, no, and maybe, letting us know that yeah, we're probably going to be seeing Wanda Maximoff, the Scarlet Witch, return sooner than expected. Maybe even by the end of this series. That would be incredible. Agatha and Billy stumble upon the next trial, but the problem is it's just the two of them, and this is actually Lilia's trial. It's at this point where things start to get a little strange. We see Agatha and Billy dressed up in witches' costumes, and we'll actually see the other witches return later on donning witches' costumes as well. These costumes are playing off of the Wicked Witch of the West from Wizard of Oz, as well as Glinda. We also see Maleficent being played by Billy, and we see the hag from Snow White, and that is who Jen is dressed up as. These costumes were amazing, and I really like the whole meta aspect of it. So as I said, things get really weird in this episode, and not in the traditional sense, but in the fact that this episode really isn't just told chronologically. This episode does some time jumping, in specific with Lilia's character herself. As we've theorized, as we've noted through past episodes, she's always having these outbursts, all these sentences that we can combine together that form phrases that kind of tell the future or the past, and now we have a final explanation. We jump back to the early days of Lilia's life, where she is a witch in a new coven, where I think she's speaking to her mother about these visions that she's having. But they're not just visions, she's actually just experiencing moments of her life in a non-sequential order. She explains that time is kind of just a matter of perception. She doesn't experience her life chronologically. Therefore, this episode, we jump back and forth, having moments that are after Billy pushed her on the Witch's Road through the mud with Jen, also moments that happened in previous episodes, also tying into the events that are happening now with the trial and her early life as a child. She is seeing all of these moments in different periods of time, so she doesn't know when and where things are going to happen, and that also explains her memory issues. I have to say, the editing job that was done on this episode to play this off, the writing as well, to make this work in this show was a huge task, and they knocked it out of the park. Because Patti LuPone does such a great job playing Lilia in this episode, making you really feel for her as a character, and it is just spot on with the emotion. She's confused all of the time because she's seen the future, she's seen the past, she doesn't know what the present really is. Like I said, we get explanations for all of the various flashbacks that we've had in previous episodes, and we also get a little bit of a flash forward. They have to complete the trial before all of these swords fall from the ceiling and kill them, and Billy and Agatha are trying to do it, but they can't. They of course need the help from Lilia. So they arrive here to help, but obviously it's been told out of sequential order, so things are jumping around, and as a viewer, we're putting the pieces together. Lilia uses her abilities with tarot to kind of get through the trial. Some of these cards represent the journey, the traveler, the obstacles that they have to face, their goal, the end point, all of these different things. It's super symbolic, but one of the cards takes a more literal approach. Of course, this whole episode we're wondering, where's Rio Vidal? Where is she? Is she up to no good? And the answer is yeah. It's confirmed and completely revealed in this episode that Rio Vidal is the physical embodiment of death. Weeks ago, we theorized that Rio could be death, especially after the merchandise that leaked from the show, but the reveal here was so cool. Now, the implications of death being a big part of the MCU moving forward is super interesting, considering in the comics, one of the main storylines with death was in fact with Thanos. Thanos was in love with death and the idea of it, and wanted to please her so much by killing half of the universe. But obviously that's not really a possibility anymore with the events that happened with Infinity War and Endgame, so now what are they going to do with this death character? Well, if we look at the most recent Marvel movie, Deadpool and Wolverine, Deadpool also has a run-in with death in the comic books, and Deadpool is kind of an undead soldier, so it kind of relates to the whole death thing as well, with him trying to please her and her loving him because, well, he can't die. Also, Death may just be in love with Agatha because she can't die. I have a feeling there's just so many things we don't know about Agatha yet, and Billy even points out in this episode that she could possibly be lying about being on the Witch's Road before. I feel like next week with the final 2 episodes, we're going to get all of those answers, and I can't cannot wait. Needless to say, this is kind of just the side story of the episode. The main episode's focus is with Lilia and her story and how she's finally becoming a witch with a coven and finding her place. However, having these visions again means she's at the end of her personal road, therefore the end of her life. She completes the trial, but the Salem 7 are on their way and Lilia stays behind to save them and sacrifice herself. However, before they leave, Lilia stops Agatha and says to her, "When she calls you a coward, duck." And this is really interesting to me personally, because how does she know that if she's not present for the future? So maybe this isn't the end of Lilia, even though we technically do say farewell to her in this episode. I have a feeling that we might see her again in the final 2 episodes. That's also interesting because she's trying to help Agatha and warn her about somebody or something, but the episode ends with Lilia taking out most of the Salem 7 and letting the other witches continue on down the witches' road, with the 3 left being Agatha, Billy, and Jen. This was a fantastic job. Patti LuPone deserves an Emmy nomination for this. I have to say, this was a fantastic story to be told in such a creative way, and I'm liking how each one of these episodes are kind of focusing on the different witches, and they are disappearing as the episodes go on, but I'm really enjoying it because we have this through line with Agatha and Billy that kind of knits the whole story all together. I mean, in this show, we've had death, we've had Billy Maximoff, we've had Mephisto mentioned, all the while telling really personal stories about newer characters. This show has surprised me so much more than I ever expected it to, and I'm so pleasantly surprised and just so excited to see how they finish it off. Most importantly, I want to know what you guys think down below in the comments. I read every single one. I most likely will respond. I gotta know what you thought about this episode. Also, leave your theories, and I will see you all very, very soon.